Hello class, this is your next project tutorial. We're getting into photography now, and the first thing we need to understand about photography is exposure. Exposure means how bright or dark is your image. You never want your image to be too dark or underexposed, as we call it, and you also don't want it to be too bright or overexposed. You want correct exposure. That just means that the lighting needs to look even across the entire photograph. All your subjects need to be evenly lit, nothing too bright, nothing too dark. And in order to achieve proper exposure, we use the exposure triangle. And it's called the exposure triangle because there's three parts of the camera that go into controlling the exposure. We're going to talk about each part one at a time. So the first part is aperture. And these next three lessons are all going to be under the same structure, where you're going to watch a separate YouTube video about aperture, and then I'm going to have you take a quiz and answer questions as you watch the video, and then you'll get some hands-on camera practice taking those pictures. Okay, so first off, you see the instructions right here. It says watch the attached YouTube video, Ultimate Guide to Camera Aperture, which is this one by the Studio Binder software program website. We use those guys a lot. So first off, I want you to watch this video, and as you're watching it, open this one for the aperture quiz and answer the questions as you're going. So I know you're currently watching a YouTube video, the one I'm doing right now, but pause my video right now and then first go take care of that. Watch this video and answer these questions, and then you can come back to the rest of this video. Once you have completed that part, then we can go into a quick little explanation of it, and then you're going to start doing your own camera practice on the one that says classwork slides. You'll see I have this one that says presentation, which is a quick little recap of everything you just watched in that video. So as you can see right here, we're going to talk about camera aperture objectives. So what it does is it not only controls the exposure, but it controls something else, and that's what all three legs of the triangle do. So let's talk about it a little bit. As you saw from the video, the aperture is controlled by the f-stop, which is that F number right there, because it not only controls the light, but it also controls the focus. That's why it's called the F number. So again, the aperture controls light and focus, and we'll talk about that with each leg of the triangle. They all control light and something else. And it's just like the pupil of our eye, as you saw in the video. Your pupil will open and close depending on how much light is hitting your eyeball. If you're out on a bright sunny day, your pupil is smaller because there's a lot of light coming in, but then if you move into a dark room, your pupil expands. If you've ever gone to a movie and then you walk outside the movie theater and then you feel all of a sudden it's too bright, that's because your pupils are really big and now they have to readjust to expose for the sunlight. And again, it's measured by the f-stop. So when you're looking on the back of your camera, in order to control the aperture, look for the number that's next to the F. The F is all aperture. That's why you'll usually see it on the home screen of a camera, because it's one of the most important things to control. And again, it determines the depth of field. So if you see in the video, it talks about you can either have a deep, shallow, or medium focus. It just means how much is in focus. If it's a deep focus, it's a lot, like the deep end of a pool. There's a lot of water. So deep focus means there's a lot in focus. The whole room or the whole landscape is in focus. A shallow depth of field is like the shallow end of a pool. It's just a little bit. So only a small part is in focus, like a person or an object. And this is where it could seem a little confusing, because the smaller F number means that the aperture is open larger. And I'm going to try my best to make sure you guys don't get too confused about a lot of these numbers, because it can be a little confusing on aperture because it's a little bit backwards. But the most important thing to remember that might make it easier for you to remember is that the smaller the f-stop number, the less is in focus. Okay, I'll say that part again to help you remember it. The smaller the f-stop number, the less is in focus, and then vice versa. The higher the number is, so the bigger you can make that F number, like F20 or F higher, the more is in focus. So bigger areas will be in focus. So let's go over a few examples. As you can see right here from this chart, that the lower numbers like F1.4 or F1.6, anything down low, you can see here, this is less in focus. And this is where it's confusing, because the smaller number means the aperture is open wider. So that's where it seems a little backwards, but don't focus on that part. Focus on the number and how much is in focus. So a small number like 1, very little is in focus. Just the flower petals are in focus. And as it starts to increase, as these numbers get bigger, just like on this chart, as these numbers get bigger, f2, 2.8, 4, 5, 8, you'll see gradually more and more is coming into focus. Once we get up pretty high, closer to f15 or 20, that's when more is in focus. This whole grassy area is in focus. So if you're going with a deep depth of field, this is good for wide shots. So if you're taking landscape shots, this is the depth of field you're going to want. And again, a higher number, more in focus, higher number. So once you start cranking it up to about f22 or higher, that's when you can start getting it. It is a smaller aperture, which just means the hole is smaller, but it's a larger number. So as the number gets bigger and the hole gets smaller, less light comes in, but it causes more to be in focus. So again, focus on this part. The larger number means more is in focus. Okay, so that's what you want for wide shots. So when you're taking your wide shots or landscape shots, you're going to want to use a higher f-stop number. And then the exact opposite with shallow focus. So remember, when you're taking pictures in the future and I ask you to get shallow focus, it means get that f number as low as you possibly can. It makes a large aperture. As you can see, the aperture itself is open wide, but it's a smaller number. And that's the part that's a little backwards and a little confusing, but focus more on smaller number means less focus. Okay, just like right here. This is how you can see our subject is crisp and clear in focus, and the background is super blurry. Same with this example right here. This is really good for close-ups when you want to get a close-up, and we're just focusing on this character. That way the background is not distracting at all, and our eyes are right here. You can also do this on your phone, in case you didn't know that. So this is something you could practice as well later in your free time. If you go on your phone, every camera now has a portrait mode, in case you've never practiced with that. When you open your phone camera for the first time, you'll see it's got photo, it maybe has pano or night side or other kind of weird settings. There's usually a portrait mode just off to the side. And what that does is it creates that shallow focus effect with your phone. Your phone doesn't actually have an aperture setting. There's no aperture wheel inside your phone. It's technically just a filter that it puts on your phone, but the effect looks exactly the same. So again, both of these were taken with my phone. This one's just the regular old camera. You could see that it's kind of distracting with the background. This is in focus. This is starting to get out of focus, but you can still see it. In portrait mode, it makes this really awesome cinematic look where your character is crisp and clear and they're not distracted by the background. It's completely blurry. So the next time you're taking selfies or pictures with your friends, instead of doing the regular camera, switch it into portrait mode and it'll look much better. Okay, so now what you guys are going to do is the classwork part will involve this Web's original camera sim website. So first click on this, and we're going to practice this a little bit so you can see what it looks like online before you actually start using the cameras. And we are going to use this website multiple times throughout the exposure triangle process. So I want you to bookmark it. Click the star up here to bookmark this to your bookmarks bar, and then it's right here. It may not be here at the top. It might be in the extra bookmarks or all bookmarks in case your bookmarks bar is full, but just make sure it's bookmarked somewhere so you can easily find it. All right, so if you go back to the assignment, we'll get started on how to use that. So again, you'll see a Google Slides with classwork. It'll say your name and classwork, and you're just gonna fill out these two slides right here. This first slide of pictures is gonna be with that website we just bookmarked. The second slide is gonna be pictures that you take with the camera. So this will be the first one with the website to get a little bit of practice. So it says right here, use the website to take photos with the following settings. So we are going to be in AV mode as we get started. There's different kinds of camera modes, and this is the aperture priority mode. What that means is it's good for getting started where the camera adjusts all the settings except aperture, so you get practice adjusting just the aperture and you don't have to get overwhelmed by adjusting all the other settings at once. So we're going to make sure we're in AV mode, and we're going to take 2 pictures. So the first one, we're going to practice at a very low f-stop. So we're going to go to f2.8 using this website. Okay, so let's go here. We're going to click Start the Sim. And you'll see it's this practice of this little girl swaying in the wind with her pinwheel at the playground. And there's a reason for all this we'll talk about in future exposure triangle projects. So as I mentioned, make sure you're on the AV mode. As you can see right there, it says aperture priority. So it allows me to control the aperture slider, and then these other ones will balance out for me. So the first one, as we mentioned, is 2.8. So that's a really low aperture. So you can see as I drag, this number is changing. Let's go down to 2.8. super shallow depth of field, and we're going to click snap photo. Just like that. Fine image, nice job. So you can see again, shallow depth of field. She is in good focus and the background is completely blurry. So to upload this picture to the slideshow, you just need to download it. So right click on the picture, do save image as, and it will just be download by default. So you can just leave it like that, or you can just give it a name. I'll just call it 2.8 and hit save. That way I know that's the 2.8 version. And then let's go back to return to viewfinder. And then let's take our second one. So photo number 2 says we're going to be at the higher f-stop, f22. And just for this particular one, we need to balance the ISO at 800. We'll go over ISO in the next project, but just set the ISO to 800 so it's not too dark. So we're going to set it to f22. So let's go back, change that aperture all the way to f22, just like that. And then as it mentions, put that ISO at about 800 right there. We'll talk about ISO on the next one, but let's click snap photo. So you can see right here, now the background is in focus, if we can see that. See, there's this kid, we can see the slide, the exact opposite of the other one. So same thing, we're going to save this image. We're going to download it to put it on the slideshow. So the first image you took, you're going to put it right here. An easy way to replace these images, instead of dragging and dropping or going to the insert and upload, you can just click replace image. So if I click on this first one and I do replace image from my computer, it's my downloads right here. Boom, there's the image right there. And let's do that with this one. Click on it, replace image from your computer, and here's the other one. And again, the reason I'm having you practice at the two extremes is so you can see the difference in what the f-stop does. It controls the light and focus. So that low f-stop number, 2.8, gives us that shallow depth of field. Again, this is a shallow depth of field where the background is blurry and our subject is not. The higher the f-stop number is good for a deep focus. So if we're taking a photo and we want to see that she's at the playground, now the background is in focus. So that's the difference. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take the cameras in class. So again, find me in class to help you out. And you're going to take 2 pictures on your own with these. So the camera will be set to AV mode. I'll set it for you, or if you can't find that, let me know. I will help you. You're going to get an SD card. Format the SD card so you have your pictures ready to go, and you're going to take 2 pictures of a classmate. So just grab a partner or a classmate during class time, and you're going to take 2 photos. So first, take your aperture. Again, just like we did here, you'll see on the back of the camera, you'll have a thing for aperture, which is your F number. Set just the aperture as low as you can go, 6.3 with our classroom cameras, and you want to zoom in on it. That will give you that shallow depth of field, just like this one right here. And then the second one, just change the f-stop to f20 and zoom out a little bit for a wider shot, and that will make it look like this one. So you're only taking 2 photos with the camera. Just set the f to f6, take a picture of your friend, and then set the camera to f20 and take another picture of your friend and upload both of those photos right here. And that's it. That's how we're going to get started with this one. So again, make sure you've watched this video and completed the quiz first, and then completed the classwork slides, the ones I just went over right here with the girl and your pictures. Once all of that is done, then you can click turn in for this project. Okay? Again, as you're using the cameras, ask me for help. I will be more than happy to help you. That's my job, and have fun.